Here we go. Hi, everybody. Mick Lebinskas here from She's Building a Robot. We have Silvia Pfeiffer here, coming to me live from previously sunny Sydney, but a little bit darker today, I hear.
Yes, we've got some rain here.
It's raining here in San Francisco too, so connected by the good precipitation that we have.
Someone is at the front door.
That's my Alexa telling me there's somebody at the front door. So
do you want to cut this out? Go and get it?
Oh, hold on, I'm going to pause it. Okay, a slight pause as my neighbours dropped in some chocolate fudge to share with my kids and I. So that's California for you. So Silvia, we were just actually testing your software, and it was amazing to see some of the amazing things it does. Can you just introduce yourself and your title? And I'd love a quick intro about your company, what it does.
Sure. So I'm Silvia Pfeiffer. I'm from Germany originally, but live now in Sydney, Australia since 1999, and I'm not going back. Like, the weather here is typically better. What do I do? I've got a background in computer science and created a spin-out company out of the CSIRO called Coviu. And Coviu is a platform for video visits between doctors and patients. And it's not just, talking heads like what we do, but it actually has diagnostic and therapeutic tools included. So that gives the clinician tools at hand that are richer than anything else they can get in normal video conferencing applications, which makes a big difference because it actually gives them better decisions and gives better care for the patient.
Great. I'd love to dive in that a bit more, but I want to go back. You mentioned the background in software development and computers. Do you remember how you very first got interested in technology? And I'd love to know what the catalyst was. Did you discover it yourself? Was there a special teacher, your family, a friend? What was that first moment of getting into technology?
That's a very good question, because it's a long, long time ago. And back in the day when the computers came to homes, like think of Commodore 64, that's how I got into it. That's what I had. There you go. Yes, I'm sorry. Well, it's a long story. Yes, we are, but never mind.
I mean, we're the veterans.
It's a really interesting story, because if you compare it to today, there were no computers around, and this computer thing was a completely new thing. And I was lucky to have a father who was interested in that kind of technology. So he bought a Commodore 64. And so he had it in his office, and he was starting to do things with it. And I was curious about it as well. We didn't even have any computing at school. There were no computers at school at all. But I had friends at school who also had these kinds of computers at home and were starting to play around with it. And they were all male. I actually went to a boarding school for boys. I was one of the local girls, four of us in the class. The rest were boys. So I always had male friends in school from the beginning. So you look very puzzled.
So you went to a boys' boarding school. There was four girls. Oh my goodness! So talk about being in the aggressive
in the minority.
In the minority.
Yeah, it's a story of my life. Story of my life. It's all right. I've always felt comfortable in that environment. Maybe because I grew up in a boys' boarding school. It's quite funny.
That's interesting. It's obviously it wasn't a shock to you to be in technology when in the future when you were the only person in the team who was female. And I want to preface this by saying I know that's changing dramatically these days, but it's really good, I think, to tell the story and show where things have come from. But I
actually think it's interesting, because back in the day when the computers came to the homes, like the Commodore 64, there was no preconception of whether it should be a boys thing or a girls thing, and we all were just playing around with it. The boys had some games that were available in journals that you could just type in and then play. So I got into Tetris and all sorts of fun things, back in the day. And there was not really this preconception. And when I applied to go into a computer science course at uni, we were 40% women, which You know, that was the first year, but it rapidly went down from there. 2 years later, I think we only had 10%. So
Okay.
we had this weird curve where
Yeah.
everything was going down, and now we're frantically trying to bring it back up to equality again. And we've done a lot. We've achieved a lot, but we're still not at like 50-50 or anything near it.
No,
I
that's
have
interesting.
I have, however, seen the changes in recent years.
Okay.
There's a lot more women in technology, a lot more software developers that are female. When I worked for Google, they had a diversity program. So everyone's really keen to bring women back into it because they know diversity makes for better quality solutions. Yes.
And I think that's a really key point that I reiterate with all the data is we're not getting diversity for diversity's sake. This is not a charity ploy. Products are better, companies are better, teams are better when there is diversity. And
Absolutely.
so I think that's a key to know. We're not doing this. There should be no sacrifice in quality. In fact, there should be an improvement in quality based on increased diversity. So that's I totally agree with that. And I wonder still, though, in terms of whether there is still social pressure and maybe even family pressure around technology from, say, a teenage girl thinking about technology. Is it the cool, popular thing to do? Are there still some parents who are like, oh, I don't know if technology or engineering is for my daughter? Hopefully those barriers are being broken down a bit, but my guess is that the social one is probably still pretty strong.
Yeah. So while I see a lot of activity around encouraging girls into technology, and it's now filtering into schools, which is where it needs to happen. It used to be, we're going to try and have diversity at university. Yeah, where are you suddenly going to bring up all these girls
That's right.
that have an interest in technology? They just don't exist, right?
You got to start early, yeah.
Exactly. So it's good to do that in schools, and even I think we need to go even earlier into, even at I can see it in some of the kids in my of my friends and family that are year 1, year 2 in school, and they're still, the girls are still being brought up very girly.
Okay.
As in with girls' toys and there's boys' toys.
Yeah.
Fortunately, they now offer these computer courses both for boys and girls, which is good. So they get some interest in that. Also, fortunately, there is the iPad, which seems to be the toy for all kids. So you have games on them that are for girls, you have games on them that are for boys.
Yeah.
There is still the segmentation between the two sexes, I think.
Yeah.
But the interest is there. The interest in bringing more girls on board, which is good. I
think there's definitely the interest and push, and I think there is the opportunity. I think we've got a lot of inertia. It's again, I think there's a lot of stories told about that the original developers, as programmers, were largely female because it was sort of an extension of typing, but also there were good mathematicians. And then at some point along the way, it became a male thing, and we are still the males became developers, which then became entrepreneurs, which then became investors, and there is still a lot of inertia around that, unfortunately, which is going to take some time to change. But I think there is a lot of effort changing it. That the thing you talked about in terms of toys, I think, is still true, and I think it's hard for parents and schools to pull it apart and give kids the opportunities against that. I've got 2 daughters and 1 son. Girls' things are all pink and fluffy and doll-like, and boys are all blue, and there is a bit of a marketing thing. But again, this push and all these role models are creating, and again, it's the reason why I've written the book, is to try to create stories for early teen girls so they can start reading about someone in technology and that they don't have a lab coat on and glasses and is socially awkward. It's it's someone they can hopefully relate to and feel more confident participating in technology. So
and I actually think it's not so much just a computer science issue anymore. It's a whole STEM issue. The whole idea of anyone who's got STEM interest is a nerd.
Yeah.
It's just so ingrained within our the way of we're thinking now in these days that it's just not attractive for girls to go into that space.
Yeah.
You really have to be a tomboy or a bit of an outsider. Definitely not a girly girl to go into that space. Fortunately, there's enough of us that are not too much girly girls.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at the same time, I just don't buy it that we have to give up our girly side to be in technology. And I'd really like to see more, more, girly girls in technology as well. We can be giggly and have fun.
Sure. Look, and I think that that's part of what diversity means as well, is to break down a lot of those stereotypes. And technology is now all pervasive, and there are lots of ways to participate in technology. As you said, it's not just as a software engineer. There's design, there's product, there's marketing, management, being an entrepreneur. There's a lot of different ways to participate.
There's data analytics. There's the whole mathematics side of it. So I totally would not. There's something that's happening as well in technology, where we're seeing an increasing number of women in the space, but they're not going after the hardcore jobs. They're being regarded as the softer jobs, and they're being pushed into the softer jobs, and I don't like that either. I think that's wrong. I think we need girls to also pick up the the deep tech jobs, deep
electrical
tech
engineering.
Work. Exactly. And I'd just like to encourage more girls into that space. It would be awesome.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the robotics sets of Lego and others are good, but they are probably still a little bit more geared to boys. I think as someone who's done software development in games, if they're developed by boys, they're going to be by males. They're going to be more male focused, and I think some of the products in those toys have got to be more balanced and pushing the other way. So electronics kits. I've seen some really good ones coming out focused on women. So again, I think goes to your other point. There's a big push in this area. I think the products are going to come, and then I think the impact will come after that. It's not going to be the easiest thing to change, because also, as you said, you can't just switch it on and say, oh, all of a sudden now we've got 1 million graduates. You've got to start very early, and that takes. And my daughters are 4 and 6. Not to say that that's the only age group we could focus on, but even if they're 10 to 14, which is the target of the book, it's going to take still 10 years for them to get to college and then get into the workplace.
So I only have a son. I don't even have a daughter that I could bring into the space, but I made sure that my son has an interest in that space. So when he was 8, we sat down and wrote our first little program together, and that was a simple calculator. And when he was 12, I took him to a coding event at Google, where they were writing a Space Invaders shooting game just in Python. It was basically write this game in a day, and he had a lot of fun doing that. And it kept him occupied to improve this one game for, I don't know, 4 years after that. He just kept on improving and improving and improving. It shows how little it really takes to get someone into that space, really excited about it. And the other thing I did, and this might be a little bit of a trick of mine, when he was about that age, 10, 12, and he was starting to get interested in online multiplayer shooting games and stuff like that, I said to him he's not allowed to play a shooting game that he hasn't written himself.
That's a good technique.
Yeah, so that got him into it. Of course, we weren't quite so black and white, but because he was coding, I thought, you learn how this stuff works. I'm happy for you to start playing the games that are adequate for your age group.
Totally.
So I'm trying to come up with a way of doing that with girls, because what are the things that girls are interested in, and that'll be a challenge that you'll have to go through. But I think one thing I do a lot with girls at the younger age groups is give them Lego, just normal Lego, because it makes them think in a construction and deconstruction way, and they can
Yeah,
build stuff. They can build stuff just as well as the boys.
totally.
And I think Lego is a really good way into it.
Yeah, yeah. I think there are lots of good opportunities these days, which is fantastic. And so, and again, I understand you've got a boy, but are there any tips or advice you have for teenage girls who might be interested in STEM, about how they might be able to get started, or things to think about, or approaches?
I would totally encourage people to learn coding, even at that age. I mean, they now teach like visual coding at even in kindergarten,
Yeah,
which is really awesome.
with the
But they
scratch.
just on Scratch, exactly. But it's very superficial, so you sort of need to keep doing that every couple of years with a something a bit more sophisticated, something a bit more interesting. And there's a lot of courses online available now.
Yeah,
Lots of websites. I haven't looked recently, but I'm sure that if they're about 12 and they have an interest in anything really, there'll be some computer program that can support them doing that. Even one thing they kept doing here in Australia is these startup camps or these uh,
the
STEM camp
hackathons.
hack.
Yeah,
Yeah, a week of hacking in January,
yeah,
where you would go to the university and you would just program certain things. Maybe you would program a Facebook, right?
yeah,
And how Facebook works, and just in its very basic fashion, just so you got an understanding for how hard it is to write something like that.
yeah.
And why not? I mean, that could be appropriate to women as much as men, something like that would be I think
Mm.
my way into the world of programming and technology.
One thing I think it's harder to see on the outside in is the actual creation component, where you can make a program and you've created something that does something, and it's hard, and it's lines of code, and it looks like it's kind of lonely. But can you talk about that moment of creation when you get a program, even if it's a little calculator or something, and it's actually working? Like, is that one of the positives for you, that moment of creation and achievement, that something actually there was nothing and now there's something?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what my whole life has been about. And I'm a research scientist. Originally, I was a research scientist, and we were just researching algorithms, etc. And it would frustrate me to no end that we would create stuff, write a paper about it, and then would end up in the shelf or somewhere in a directory on a computer, and it would die.
Yeah,
Because you've created something, it's amazing, and you're not taking it anywhere. And getting to that point where you've created something and seeing it work and just being proud of that
yeah,
that's just amazing. It's just as good as you go and do some work, some woodwork, and you've got a plan on how to do that woodwork, and in
yeah,
the end there is this thing that you've built, let's say a chair, and it's a chair, it's functional, and you can sit on it. It's amazing. It's a great achievement. It's
yeah,
such a success story, and you can do the same with computers and with software.
yeah.
So that's kind of where we need to take people, to have that kind of success story.
That's fantastic. And I think there's also been some things mentioned about you mentioned that diverse teams add value. Can create better products and better companies. Do you think that you found particular maybe innate traits that women are stronger at? And I think there are strengths and weaknesses that men have, and that's why teams work better. Do you from again, a teenage girl's perspective, they may not really see how their basic strengths could help in programming. Are there any particularly that you think are those strengths that really align?
Well, I think one of the things that women are particularly good at is understanding user experience. So when you come into a software and you start using it, and you get to the point where you go, oh, why is it doing that? It's just wrong. That just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And I guess men and women both can have that kind of understanding. But I have a feeling that women are better at understanding journeys of users and finding out these gaps and really identifying what needs to be improved, and also coming up with ideas on how to improve it. So there's this user experience, user interface, creative knowledge that seems to be a little bit more natural to women than men. I don't really like saying that there is, certain traits, because you'll always find a person that is an exception in the other sex.
I think that's the wonderful thing, is it's not, I don't think you're totally right. It's not about gender or race or culture or height or age. You want diversity of people with different characteristics, and amongst all those things, there's such wonderful diversity. So to not have any groups included is just to miss out on big parts. So, and that's, I think, I really hope that I really believe we're going in the right direction. I think it's still going to take some more time because it's a cultural, generational change. But I'm really glad things are going in the right direction. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for your great work in technology and being supportive of my book and the process. Good luck with your business, and I'll include in the blog post a bit of a demo video to show you. I saw the arm bending, so we want a good GIF or an animation showing that. That'd be great. Best
sure,
luck with the
absolutely.
business. I hope to see you in San Francisco. I believe you're going to be here for SASTA, and love to catch up with you soon. So thank you so much, Silvia.
Beautiful. Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye.